In this tutorial, we will learn how to load more data using Ajax with Node.js and MySQL. Imagine you have a web page that displays a list of data, such as blog posts or products. By default, the page shows only a limited number of items. To help users see more items without reloading the page, so you can use Ajax to load more data dynamically. To begin, make sure you have Node.js and MySQL installed on your computer. Then, create a new Node.js project and install the required dependencies. So we have goes to command prompt and goes into directory in which we will create Node application. After this, we have run this command which will create load more data directory. Now for download required dependencies, so we have to run this command. So this command will download Express module and MySQL module under this directory. Now we have opened this directory in text editor, and under this we have create two files with name like server.js and index.html. First we have goes into server JavaScript file, and under this file, we have to write express variable is equal to require method with express module name, so it will import express module under this file. After this we have to write MySQL variable is equal to require method with MySQL module name. So it will import MySQL module under this server file. Now we want to create new instance of Express application, so here we have to write application variable is equal to express function, which returns an instance of the application. After creating instance, we can start defining our server routes by using method like get, post or put method. After this, we want to make MySQL database connection, so here we have to write connection variable is equal to MySQL.create connection method, which will make MySQL database connection. Now under this function, we have to define MySQL database configuration in an array key and value format. So in first key, we have to write host, and in value, we have to write localhost. In second key, we have to write user, and in value, we have to write root. In third key, we have to write password, and in value, we have to leave blank value. And in last key, we have to write database, in value, we have to write testing. So after define this configuration, so this Node application will able to connect with testing MySQL database. Now here in testing database, we have one post table. And under this table, we have already insert some sample data. So we will use this data for show you how can we implement load more data in Node application. Now we want to create index route for load content of index.html file in the browser. So here we have to write application variable.get function with two argument. In first argument, we have to write / which is main root of this Node application. And in second argument, we have to write callback function with two argument like request and response. Under this callback function, we have to write response.sendFile function, and under this function, we have to write __ with directory name statement, which will return full path of your working directory. After this, we have append file name like index.html, so it will load content of this file in the web page. Now we have goes to index.html file, and here we have paste this code. After this, we have create one unordered list tag with class is equal to list group and margin bottom 3 class. After this, we have to write id attribute is equal to post data, so under this tag, we will list post table content. Below this tag, we have create one button tag, with type is equal to button. With class is equal to button and button primary class, and ID attribute is equal to load button. So when we have click on this button, then more post data will be load under this unordered list tag. Now we have goes to JavaScript code part, and here we have to write post data variable is equal to document.querySelector function. And under this, we have to write unordered list tag ID post data. So here we have store property of this tag under this variable. After this, we have to write load button variable is equal to document.querySelector function. And under this, we have to write button ID load button. So here we have store button property under this variable. Now we have create one start index variable with 0 value. And after this, we have defined another variable with name like number of record with 10 as value. After define this variable, now we have create one JavaScript function which will send Ajax request for fetch data from MySQL table. Under this function, first we want to create Ajax request, so here we have to write constant request variable is equal to new XMLHttpRequest object, which will create new instance. And it is built-in browser API that allows JavaScript to make HTTP requests to a server and handle the response asynchronously without reload of the web page. After this, we want to configure and open a GET request to a specific endpoint on a server. So here we have to write request variable.open method with two arguments. In first argument, we have to write HTTP method to use for the request, which in this case is GET method. So the GET method is used for requesting data from a server, typically by appending query parameters to the endpoint URL. In the second argument is the URL of the endpoint, which is send request to server. In this case, it is template string that includes the start index and number of record variable. These variables likely represent starting index and number of records to fetch from the server. Now we have to write request variable.onLoad event with callback function. So this function will be called when response has been received from the server. Under this function, we have to write result variable is equal to JSON.parse function, and under this function, we have to write request variable.response text. So it will receive data from server and store data into results variable in an array format. Now we have defined one HTML variable with blank value in which we will store post content in HTML format. After this, we have to write if statement, and under condition, we have to write results variable.length value is greater than 0, so it will check some data has been received from server. If no data has been received from server, then it will execute else block of code. And here we have to write HTML variable, and here we have append this code for display message like no more data found. And after this, we want to remove this load more button, so here we have to write load button variable.remove method, so it will remove load more button. But suppose some data has been received, then it will execute if block of code. So here, we want to fetch data from results variable, so here we have to write results variable dot for each function with result variable as argument. Under this callback function, we have to write HTML variable, and here we have to append HTML code like list tag with class is equal to list group item class, and between this tag, we want to print post title content, so here we have to write result variable dot post title variable. So on every loop, it will one by one print post title data under this list tag. Now below this, we have to increment start index variable value by 1. After this, we want to display content under this unorder list tag, so here we have to write post data variable dot inner HTML property is equal to post data dot inner HTML property plus HTML variable. So it will display post title content under unorder list tag. And lastly, we want to send Ajax request, so here we have to write request variable dot send method. So it will send Ajax request to server, and now we want to call this function when page has been loaded. So here we have to write load data function, which will send Ajax request for fetch more data from database. So when page has been loaded, then this function will be called, and it will display post data on the web page with load more button. So here, our vanilla JavaScript code is ready. Now we have goes to server.javascript file. And under this file, we want to create another route for receive Ajax get request. So here, we have to write application.get function with 2 arguments. In first argument, we have to write URL endpoint like get data, and in second argument, we have to write callback function with 2 arguments like request and response variable. Under this callback function, first we want to store get URL variable value under local variable. So here we have to write start index variable is equal to request.query.start index variable. So it will store URL query start index variable value under this local start index variable. After this, we have to write number of record is equal to request.query.number record variable. So it will store URL query number record variable value under this number of record variable. Now we want to write select query for fetch data from post table, so here we have to write SQL variable is equal to select post title from post table with order by ID in ascending order. And for fetch limit data, so here we have to write limit $ with open and close bracket. And between this, we have to write start index variable, comma open and close bracket. And between this, we have to write number of record variable, so it will fetch limit number of data from post table. Now for execute this query, so here we have to write connection variable dot query method with 2 arguments. In first argument, we have to write SQL variable, and in second argument, we have to write callback function with error and results variable as argument, so this function will return query execution result. Now for send data to Ajax request, so here we have to write response variable.json method with results variable, so it will send data to Ajax request in JSON string format. So here our code is ready. Now for check output in the browser, we have goes to command prompt. And here, we have to run this command, which will start Node server. Now here in the browser, we have to write localhost with $3000. So here, on the web page, we can see that post table content has been displayed with load more button. But when we have click on button, then no more data has been loaded. So for this things, here in index file, we have to write load button variable dot add event listener function with 2 argument. In first argument, we have to write click event, and in second argument, we have to write callback function. So when we have click on load more button, then this function will be execute. So here we have to write load data function, so it will call this function, which will send Ajax request for fetch more data. So when we have click on button, then this function will be called, and it will load more data on the web page. Now here in the browser, we have refresh web page, and after refresh of web page, here we can see that post title data has been displayed on web page with load more button, so now we have click on the button. So here, we can see that more post title data has been loaded on the web page without reloading web page. So on every click, it has been fetch new post title data from my SQL table and display on the web page. But when there is no more data available in database, then it will display no more data available. And it will remove load more button from web page. So this way, we can implement load more data feature in Node.js with MySQL database. And that's it. With just a few lines of code, you can add a load more functionality to your web pages using Ajax with Node.js and MySQL. Thank you for watching, and be sure to check out our other tutorials for more Node.js and MySQL tips and tricks.